My name is Marcia Robinson, and we are recording an oral history with Teri Harris Ivie as part of the Sweet MUMories Oral History Project to mark the 50th anniversary of the Miami University Middletown campus. This interview is taking place on September 2nd in Johnston Hall. Mrs. Harris Ivie, do I have your consent to proceed with this interview?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Could you please tell us about your connection with the Miami Middletown campus?
Well, actually, the first time I ever came to the campus was when I was a child, like 12 years old. And the campus here wasn't even built. It was initially over closer to the downtown area, and it was a small building, and they were just holding classes there. And that was part of the extension of the original Miami University campus, and that was where my father came. He wanted to take some classes, and I can't say, he had a whole array of classes. There was math and business and these type of things, as he was a businessman in a small community between Oxford and Middletown. So he chanced to come to the campus as soon as he heard that it opened, and he did only go one semester, but he was a straight A student, so I'm proud to say that was my initial visit with Miami Middletown. And then I had heard of it, but I had never been over here, and I had gone to work as a temporary employee over there during admissions on the main campus, and then Dr. Governanti, his assistant, needed someone to fill in for her. And they called me one night and said, Teri, we really like your work. They're looking for someone to be the assistant for Dr. Governanti. Would you please go over for an interview? And she made it sound as though that interview, like it was already a done deal, that I was the only candidate. So I went in and sat down with Marion Cottrell, which was Dr. Governanti's administrative assistant, and we hit it off fabulously. I actually became very, very good friends with Marion, and I thought, I already thought I had the job. And sure enough, I did. I didn't even know that they had actually interviewed other people. And so then later on, still a temporary status over at the Oxford campus. And so I was called and they said, would you come and run the switchboard for 2 weeks? The main person is having some type of surgical procedure. And I said, sure, I can do that. And actually, at that time, the switchboard was not even in that position that I had showed you upstairs. It was over in front of the director of admissions area, which I'm not sure what that is now. But it was over there. And then they had told me, they said, we're going to build a different area for it. It is going to be in front of the, I think it's the Armco.
The Armco Mosaic.
Mosaic. And so Dick Solomon kept coming over to the main campus. By then, I had worked several years there and became the assistant director to catering at Miami, Ohio, and in the Oxford campus. And we became, when I started, didn't have a very good reputation, and when I left, we were the exclusive caterer for the president of the university, and we gave huge events for. 1 year we did. I was there twice. The first time, Steve Davis was he was my boss, and we did the Charter Day Ball. And the second time when they came back, which is 2,000 people, they asked me specifically to work on the menu and do the event for them. So I was really pleased. I was still just an assistant director of catering, but my forte was the carryouts and to do the on-site stuff at the president's home whenever he entertained for the students at the beginning of each year, or whether, and we even had one lady that was donating over $1 million, and we had presidential china over there, and I would make sure that everything was done over there properly. And so the time and energy that the catering took out of me, and I had younger children, I decided I needed more of an 8 to 5 job. So Dick Salmon was over there, and he kept saying, "Dr. Governani would like to see you." And I'd always ask about him and see how he was. And I said, "You know what? All he has to do is ask me to come over. I'll be there." And so finally one day Dick arranged for me to apply for the position of the switchboard. And he said I'd be working in the marketing department, but I'd be taking care of the switchboard full time. And it basically was, I think, a 7 to 4 job. I'm not for sure of the hours, but possibly 8 to 5. But it didn't matter. I loved it. Whenever I was off, I wanted to stay around to see, the activities and what the kids were doing. And the beautiful thing about this campus here is the fact that they had a lot of adults as well as young people just out of school, high school, wanting to come. But the fact that there were a lot of adults coming back to not only continue their education or just begin with their college education. I've seen a lot of people come through here. Nursing program was wonderful. I'm sure it still is. But the nursing program was really, really, it flourished tremendously during the years that I was here. The campus, I don't know where they are as the amount of students, but we were busting at the seams, hence the reason for the Voice of America. That's why that was the satellite to this, and that's where Rod Nimps comes in. As far as he used to be the assistant director here, and then he moved on down to director of Voice of America.
I would like for you to describe what your day would be like on the switchboard, because so many people have talked about the importance of that switchboard as a center or the first face of the campus. What do you see from the other side of the desk?
On the inside of the desk and the surrounding area of the switchboard, it was a place where anyone coming into the property obviously would usually come to Johnston Hall, and they would walk up and they would ask whatever question they needed. As I said before, my day was a typical 8 to 5 day, if you can say such a thing. And that's the one thing I loved about it. There was no 2 days that was ever alike. I would be able to assist students as to where they needed to go, if they needed to go to admissions, if they needed to come down here to the student affairs office, or wherever they needed to go. There would be students that would come up and they would maybe not feel well. I could direct them to where they needed to go with whatever issues they had, direct them to the bookstore, to where they could get something to eat. Even if it were just people that were visiting the campus wanting to look at it. We've had some interesting times. I know there was one instance where there was a young woman that worked in I can't remember the name of what they used to call it. It was the food service that they had provided here. And I remember waking up one morning and I heard on the news that a young boy had almost drowned, but they were able to save him. And I went to work that day, and it was Chrissy's son that had nearly drowned, and they were able to save him.
Can we pause? She's an employee?
Yes, she was full-time.
Okay, continue.
Chrissy. And they were able to get him back. We raised money for his barometric treatments and everything, and he was in here in a wheelchair, and he's still alive to this day. Chrissy, Juanita could tell you what her last name is, but she's just a wonderful human being. There were a lot of wonderful people that worked back in the kitchen area to help with the students. They were service people like myself, but oh, they were amazing. Dr. Jo Baldwin, she was one of the people, she was a cousin to Oprah Winfrey, and she was one of the most styling professors. And she always wore a big brim hat and a shawl, and she would always come down and greet me. There were so many wonderful professors that would come by, and one of the professors was writing a book, and he needed to have it sent over to somewhere in Europe. And we had such a hard time because of the time zone. So one morning he came in really early, and we finally got it submitted and faxed completely over to Europe. And we were able to succeed in that. And he ended up taking me out to, his name was Dr. Liu, and he ended up taking me and 2 other professors out to lunch. And it was a wonderful adventure. Overall, like I said, no 2 days were alike. I can remember the snow days, and as I was saying before, when the snow days would come, people would call to find out if there were cancellations for the classes. And I had lost my voice 2 separate times trying to answer, because I'd have to say, Miami University Middletown, how may I help you? Or how may I direct your call? And by the time you say that, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of time within, just a very short time frame, then you'd say, thank you, 1 moment, please, and then you would direct it on, and the next call. And sometimes I would have the whole board lit up with people calling in, and you would have to watch the board and the lights on the board to see where the calls and the order they came, and pick them up and direct them to exactly where they needed to go. I can remember 9/11. That was a horrific day. And that morning, I remember the girl in admissions, her name was Sheila Miller, and Sheila had said to me, Teri, something awful has happened. There's been a plane that has hit one of the buildings in New York, and one of the Twin Towers. And so I immediately got up and went over to her, and she told me where she saw it on the internet. So I went back to my area. I tried to pull it up. By then, the internet was so jammed that you could not even begin to reach any information. And then she, because she was already in there, got to see what was happening. Her stream was still continuing. So then she said a second one had hit the other tower. And by then we knew that we were under attack, and the phone calls started coming. And if we had not installed this, how to direct our phone calls to different places to see, because immediately everyone was scared. They were actually people that were terrified to come to campus because they just did not know. And there were some people that just wanted to stay home and watch television and focus on what was happening, because that was a monumental change in the lives of everyone in the United States. And it is, even today, a very serious time where we have to watch, even as high school and elementaries, what people are doing. And we have, I will say, there has been several times, but one instance in particular that I remember where a man came in. He called first, and he said, I need to know where the nurses study. And I started questioning him because that was not a normal conversation. So I said, well, sir, if you would come to the switchboard, I'll be happy to help you. And I said, what student is it that you need to see? So he told me her name. And so I immediately called over to the head nurse, or the head educator in the nursing department. And she said, Teri, I'm so glad you called. We have a restraining order. She has a restraining order out for him. He's nowhere allowed near her. So what happened was I immediately got a hold of our security department. And I told him that this man was coming in and he was going to come to me. And then once I told him that, he was in a place where he could meet him directly. Now, he did walk the man over to the director of nursing. They spoke. She advised him that she knew the restraining order, and the student was also made aware of the fact that her husband was on the premises. But she also was made aware of the fact that she was being protected, and so they escorted him back to his vehicle and made him leave. They also made a notation of all of his, his description, the description of his car, his license plate, and everything. So if they ever saw that on campus, because our security people would tour the parking lot for any kind of vandalism or whatever, and so they knew that this gentleman was not allowed on campus anymore after that, and they explained that to him. So those were some very important factors that is, sad to say, part of our society today. But this campus, overall, it's vivacious. It's never ending in the growth of not only the education, but the happiness. It was family. It was absolutely family here. And as I said, Juanita Hatton and Carol Cadill, I always called them my two angels, because to this day, they're my angels, because whenever you saw a need for the campus or a student in need, they did their best. One of the most favorite things that I did, I was always noted that I could take a sow's ear and make a silk purse. So Juanita approached me one day and she said, Teri, we need to really come up with a nice fundraiser. She said, I have an idea. Can we have everybody bring in stuff that they would normally use for a yard sale and donate items? We'll put them in this room and we'll turn you loose. And whatever you can create out of that, then we will sell it at this fundraiser. So I think we earned over $2,000 that particular fundraiser. And I believe it was room 13 right here. It was a room they had not used for a little while. And they cleared it out, put tables out for me, and everybody would bring their stuff, bring it to Juanita. She would put it in there. And I had so much fun on my lunchtime, and after work, I would come down and I would gather things up from the different areas and make these baskets. And we sold so many of those and had so much fun. Some things would have vintage Miami University, Middletown items in them, and some things would just, some things were Christmas, there were spring items. We would make baskets, we would make wreaths, and my girls that worked at the switchboard as well, they would come down and help me sometimes. and they gave me a glue gun and baskets and stuff to fill them with, and we had I believe 8 full 8-foot tables full of items to sell. And we didn't ask a lot for them because it was all donation, and people would donate money alongside of that. And like I said, I think we earned over $2,000 for that one particular event. Love that. The faculty and staff, faculty and staff and the students gave me a large going away party up at Verity Lodge. And one of the things that they gave me it was like crackling, but they shaped it in like a sow's ear, and then they gave me some pearls to go with it and said you can make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. So I had a beautiful going away party, and there were many of the girls through the admissions department, and some of the other I believe Ruth may have been part of that as well. And everybody was just laughing and laughing and laughing. And I walked over to see, what was going on. And then all of a sudden there was total quiet. And I walked up and I said, well, you must be talking about me, because I heard all this laughter. Now there's total silence. And they still had tears in their eyes where they'd been laughing so hard. And what had happened, they said that they were revisiting all my little antics and things that I would do that would make them laugh, because I felt like that was part of my job, to make people happy while they were on campus. And one of the girls said, and Teri's leaving, so we won't have that anymore. And then that's when the quiet came. They all got sad. And I said, I'm not going to be that far away. I'm going to be in Las Vegas. So one of the songs that I used to sing, we had someone would come in and she would be kind of grumpy. And she just had that personality that just wasn't, she was wonderful with the students, but overall she just had kind of a grumpy personality. So I would sing to her every morning, gray skies are gonna clear up, put on a happy face. And I would say this to her. So I sang that the very last day when they gave me the party. They had even invited my husband up, and he got to be part of that. But I sang that for everyone at my parting party. So people, like I said, people are family. When a student is hurting, pretty much everyone in the campus would know about it, whether they knew the student or not. If they had a need, we would all rally together, and that's much thanks to Juanita and Carol. They would put the word out that somebody had a need, and we'd take care of it. The old saying that it takes a village to raise a child. I used to think that Juanita was like Sister Teresa, just put in one little blonde-headed package. She's an amazing woman. Probably one of the most amazing women I've ever known. I hope I have the opportunity to get to see her.
You mentioned some of the students who had worked for you. You also mentioned a couple of special needs students. Would you mind talking about those memories you have of them?
I was introduced to one young lady who would come around in a wheelchair, and she was not even 3 foot tall, and she was always in this wheelchair. And then she had most beautiful long fingers and could just type like so fast. I envied her. And she was just a wonderful, wonderful young lady. And then there was another one who had the same type of disability, and she was a spark plug. She always had a date. She had her fingernails done, and she was just amazing. They would get down out of their wheelchair. When they would come on duty, I would have my chair adjusted to where they liked it, a certain height, and they would get down out of their wheelchair and get right. And that was the reason we had to build a special ramp just for them, and because we just loved having them work. They were so much fun when they were on the switchboard. They were very personable young ladies, and they really liked to reach out to all the students and give them help. And that's why I had to have them, because as I said, I like to give customer service even if I'm the customer. I like to give it back before I even receive it. And they were both that way in their different, one being shy, one being extremely outgoing. I had an introvert and an extrovert, and they were best friends. And one day I found out that one of the girls, she was talking to me about her disease, and she said, "Teri, even if I roll out of bed, I can break a bone." She said, "I've had over 200 broken bones in my life that I know of." And yet she had the determination to come to school every single day, and not only come as a student, but also work on top of that to help further her education. So that was prevalent in that disease. And so for either one of those girls to have that tenacity to come forward and work for us. I mean, we built the ramp especially so they could access it easily. And they were the joy of working. I always loved it whenever they were coming on duty, because you knew that there was laughter coming. And to me, that is so amazing. And I know that all the students, the faculty and staff just love to have them around. And I have to say, they could have chosen any other place to work as a student, and they chose the switchboard. And what a blessing that was. Just absolutely, to choose that venue to work as a student employee. I was blessed beyond words. And it's just been an amazing opportunity to know someone that has that type of diversity and challenge, and to get up every day to go and further their education. And they were serious, even though the other one was an extrovert. She was very serious about her classes, and they never called off for sickness or anything. I could count on those two girls for anything and everything. Wow. I never liked to have time off. And when, like for sickness and stuff, and I mean, if I were contagious, I would obviously stay home, because that's not fair to anyone. But if there was anything else wrong with me, I would stay home, but only if I had to. And I ended up with like 1,100 hours of sick time when I left here. I left a lot of money behind with that, but I left that. But I have to say that even during that time, and there were times where I might have a dentist appointment or something, if I needed someone, they were there. I didn't have to, I'd just say, "Oh, if you see so-and-so, would you tell her I'm looking for her today?" And she would be right there and zip her little wheelchair up and say, "What's going on?" And I would say, "Well, I need to do this and I have an appointment. Can you cover?" "Sure, not a problem." I mean, they were just amazing students. To know, I mean, you just don't find that anywhere. And we had it right here at the university. This campus has been blessed. Dr. Governani, he was an amazing, amazing director. I have to tell a story about Dr. Governani. When I was interviewed by Dr. Governani, he asked me, he said, Teri, he said, what do you think is one of the most important things in life? And I said, Dr. Governani, I think communication is one of the most important things that you can have in life. I said, whether it is a employer to an employee, whether it's a child to a parent or a parent to a child, husband and wife, no matter where you go in the world, communication is one of the most vital things. I said a lot of people think that it's trust, but I said that if you have communication, trust comes along with that. It builds upon your communication skills. And he said, Teri, may I add one more thing on top of that? And I was intrigued, and I sat up and I said, yes, Dr. Governani. And he said, concise communication. And I looked at him and I'm like, I was intrigued. And he said, okay, Teri, he said, you see the large rock out there in the center of the campus? And I said, yes, I know that rock. And he said, I have so many wonderful faculty and staff that if I said to them, let's move that rock because it's important to the issue at hand, we need to have that rock moved. Everyone would be so excited, they would be standing behind one another, pushing as hard as they could. But with concise communication, if I say, okay, everyone, we need this rock to go from here to point B, from point A to point B, then everyone would line up behind everyone in one particular direction to move that rock exactly where it needed to be in the other direction. And I was so impressed. And I can tell you, whether I've been interviewed as a potential employee for someone, or whether I am interviewing an employee for myself, I have used that analogy almost every single time. And ever since I interviewed with Marion, I guess I learned that technique of relaxing and feeling like you're interviewing with a friend. And I've never applied for a job that I didn't get. And I've never been let go of a job unless I've left there intentionally. So I think I have learned so many things when I came to this campus that I didn't always have benefit of learning on the main campus. On the main campus, you worked. And you had wonderful relationships, but you just didn't have that ties, those strong chords, those beautiful times of communication and connecting. And it was a connection. This university, if I can say one thing about it, you make connections that last the rest of your life. And I have to say that I can't think of anybody who has passed through the doors of Miami University Middletown that hasn't walked back out a better person.
I'd almost like to stop there, but there's a couple things that you mentioned I'd like to pick up that we talked about before the tape started. You mentioned your father was a student here, but he's not the only family member who's been on this campus. Can you talk about your personal family connection to the campus?
As I had talked about before, my father was a student here even before, probably during the groundbreaking time for this, but they had it over on the, I believe, southwest side of Middletown, where it was in a school building after hours. There were only a few instructors at that time. It was just the very beginning. As I said, I'm not even sure if they had broken ground here. I'm sure they had. They had to have all that in place. But my father, and he was so proud of the fact that he had taken college courses and that he was straight A, even though he was here only one semester. He was a working man with 3 children, so he needed to continue to pursue that, because it was difficult for him, being a self-employed man, to always have people there that he could count on. But then I myself was able to take some continuing education. Here with, they have a wonderful, I don't know if they still have it, but they had a wonderful continuing education. If you wanted to come in and take, that was very new for computers, like for Excel and all of those. And there was a wonderful teacher that was normally teaching the regular students for the university, and then she also taught the community, continuing education for the community. So people like myself, even though I was employed here, I could take the Excel and all the different PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, all of those I could take as an addition. And then my daughter and my son, 2 out of 3 of my children, came here to this campus. Both my oldest and my middle child came here to the university. And then my granddaughter is currently here as a student. And in fact, yesterday she was here, but she doesn't have classes today. She loves it here. She would not, her preference is this, and there are so many. That's the beauty of this campus. There are so many. You have to understand that where we are in this setting in Ohio, it's a very rural area overall. I mean, there are larger cities, Cincinnati, Dayton, Middletown. Middletown really caters to people that are just high school graduates that want to go, and they don't want to be thrown in with maybe people from New York City and California and different large, that they want to just begin their lives and their education with people that have come out of maybe rural towns the same as they have. And then once they get so far with their education, they obviously take classes on the main campus, and they do get that exposure. But I have found almost always that everyone that has started out here, and this is no disrespect to Miami, Oxford, because I love that very much, but they're just, Miami Middletown is just, it's like being home. And like I said, many of the young people that have gone to the main campus to study often come back here and finish their degrees, whether it be, you know, they go as far as they can go, and they always love to come back here and try to get as many classes on this campus as they can get. So it's a wonderful campus.
I have no other questions. You've been very thorough. Do you mind if we discontinue the recording?
No, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
That's fine. Thank you.